Chairman Cole. Thank you.
Well, we're not all alarmed because a lot of those get maintained at Tinker Air Force Base, Mr. Chairman. So we think we
I knew
do
you'd
that
land on the
pretty
right
well.
spot.
But
Boom.
just in case that was overlooked, but it actually does get to the question I wanted to ask, and I will be sort of shamelessly parochial here, but I'll try and include other depots as well. As you know, Madam Secretary, better than any of us around this table, about 70 or 80% of the cost of any weapon system is maintaining it over its projected lifestyle or cycle, and we all know that we're maintaining a lot of systems a lot longer than we ever intended them to be maintained. So we run into problems like my friend from Georgia referred to, where these things are very difficult, almost have to be individualized in how you overhaul each particular plane, because we're way beyond what anybody thought about how you would maintain them. So even getting parts sometimes a huge problem. So how comfortable are you that you've got what you need in terms of both the three major depots that you have, and obviously we have a lot of private contractors involved in this kind of work, and are we directing enough money into those areas if indeed we're going to have to keep these planes flying longer than any of us would like to?
Well, first, if I could begin by saying I've, of course, been to our depots, very, very proud of the work that's going on, fantastic accomplishments for this very important area of sustainment. I would also tell you that we are continuing to invest in such things as tooling and the various types of equipment that are required in the depots for both our new systems like the F-35, the KC-46 that are coming on, but also for our existing systems, the existing aircraft, the nuclear mission, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're doing a pretty good job of investing in that sort of equipment. Two concerns I would give you is that, and this is a concern across the board, I mentioned it in my opening statement, infrastructure. So keeping up the roads, keeping up the buildings. So for the depots, I'm worried about infrastructure, but you know what? I'm worried about that across the whole Air Force. So that's one thing. And then civilian hiring is another thing. So the depots are, of course, largely civilian employees, and when you combine the effects of sequestration a few years ago, and that set us behind in terms of the workload, the hiring, that got us all messed up. You've got OPM rules, which are a constraining factor for us, security clearances that are, long to come through. All of this is a concern. So I would say civilian hiring and infrastructure would be the two concerns.
On that point, on the hiring point and the workforce point, frankly, during sequestration, self-inflicted wound, we all agree was a mistake. But when we had government shutdowns, we also made a pretty big mistake because we were furloughing people that we paid through the working capital fund at places like Tinker that didn't need to be furloughed. And so a lot of that extra work was built up. So none of us ever want to be in that situation again. But if we are, I would and I ask for a response on this, I would urge that you keep the workforces that you can working. Don't just send them home because some have to go home. Make sure, because it was a much more difficult problem getting up. Having lost their capacity, then we're in an overtime situation. It's more expensive at the other end. So when you can keep people working, and those workforces, again, because of the way in which they're paid, many of them can be kept there. I would hope we could do that if we're ever in this situation again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do you have a comment on that you'd care to make?
No, I think
Would you like to make an assurance?
That all makes good sense to me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.